We go. Good morning. Good day. We're thrilled to have you with us. My name is Glynis E. Devine. I'm Chief Juicer because I help women squeeze the best out of life. I'm thrilled to be able to showcase one of Canada's top leaders and thought leaders on leadership for women today. My guest today is the leading pioneer in Canadian fashion, Montreal's own. She is in the luxury fashion industry. She has moved into accessories. She moves into fragrance. She's very ubiquitous and now even is in the home markets in terms of home decorating. So very much an ever-presence in the fashion industry on the whole. She started her business in 1987. Since then, she has climbed the ranks to be one of Canada's most recognized luxury fashion designers. She's the founder of House of Saint Marie. She is the recipient of the Order of Quebec, the Order of Canada, Queen Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee Medal earner. In 2015, she received the Outstanding Achievement Award from the Canadian Arts and Fashion Award, and in 2017 was named a member of the Royal Canadian Academy of Arts. I am thrilled to have with me today Marie Saint Pierre. Marie, welcome.
Thank you very much.
For our listeners who are tuning in for the very, very first time, She Suite is a brand new Canadian initiative that was founded in the hopes of moving more women into more senior positions across Canada. I hosted a women's leadership forum this time last year and up in Toronto, and I had the pleasure of having different thought leaders being showcased that day. And one of those people was a representative of Catalyst, and they were sharing all of the statistics of a recent report. And my job as the chair was I was tweeting sound bites throughout the day. And I remember that Vandana stood up from Catalyst and shared that 5.6% of all the positions in Canada of C-suite and board executive members were held by women. And I remember going to tweet it and thinking, I'll wait till she sits down because I've got that number wrong. And as she sat down, I said, what was that number again? And she said 5.6%. I said, oh, that's awful. And she said, yes, that's terrible. And so over the past year, this initiative has morphed into what it is, which is featuring top women from top industries across Canada to find out what do we have to do to change things. So the goal out of these telesummits are to come up with tools and tips and strategies in 3 separate areas. Number 1, we want to arm high potentials with some tools and strategies to help position them to be a healthy mindset, to have a healthy mindset as a senior leader, and to start some healthy habits that will position them so that in difficult situations, they're armed with the tools that they'll need to be able to be more visible. The second area of the telesummit is really helping women who are already in those top positions. Every leader has 3 mandates, primary mandates, that they're expected to carry out. One is to increase performance, the other is to improve retention, and the third is to increase revenue. And so we want some tools and strategies to help them. And the third area really talks to the corporate culture. It's talking about how we can build a place where C-suite leaders can thrive, a healthy environment that has sustainable development, and a place that not only attracts top leaders, but keeps them, nurtures them, develops them, and grows them so that they can thrive. So Marie, let's start with the first piece of the pie. Let's talk about the intrinsic piece. What did you have to do as a brand new aspiring leader to get ready for this role, to prepare specifically as a woman?
I guess I had to be naive in a way because I didn't think there was a difference between a man and a woman. I thought, everyone was born equal, and it's really on the ground that I found that this was not true at all. First meeting with the banks, and then investors, and then meeting with the industry. I mean, we talk about the glass ceiling, but in our industry, it's the glass runway we have. It's one of the worst industry actually to be in as a woman, which is quite interesting because most of the customers are women. and we have the lowest of the lowest recognition of the work of designers. And I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about all the women that have been, in this industry before. When we talk about the artistic side, and I guess it's very similar to the art world, when a woman is an artist, it's always like pleasant and comfortable. When it is a man designing something, it's always extraordinary and
brilliant
and groundtaking. Yeah. So and it's true, and it's been like that, and it's a bit frustrating. So I guess when you start, you better not know.
And has it changed? Has it morphed any in the 25 or 30 years that, I guess it marks 30 years this year?
I found the changes are very slow, unfortunately. I find that even sometimes it's getting worse before it's getting better. So it's not an easy place. Maybe because women don't trust each other also on the grounds of, how they look. They'd rather have the opposite sex telling them what to wear instead of the same sex, because there's always still that competition with women. Is it the way we are raised, or is it the way we function? And maybe, we have to cultivate something different right from the beginning, that, it's not because you are a woman that you have to, to be suspecting other women to want to take your place or anything like that. So it's a hard place, and knowing that it's hard for women to succeed, sometimes you excuse them for pushing other women outside their way, because they had a long ride to get there. But if you think it's the same rules apply for men and women in this industry, it does not. It really does not. And whenever I say that, people look at me and, oh, why are you saying that? And I'm like, because it's true. I mean, I can tell you a horror story where, I've been treated very poorly by insurance company, banks, name it.
And most of those interactions that were really negative, were they with women or were they with men?
They were with men, actually, but because I was a woman, I was, treated differently than a man. And, I remember being pregnant and, having my banker coming to my office. I was due a few days before his visit. And because of some kind of, situation in the Canadian or in the Quebec fashion industry, they came to my office to tell me that they would give me 48 hours to give back my margin of credit. I mean, we live in an industry where we actually work a year in advance. So, telling you that to find someone to finance it in 48 hours is an impossible task.
And 2 days past due giving birth.
And I was, yeah, exactly. And so I told the banker, I said, you know what, you go back to Toronto and you tell your bank, your superior, that if I give birth and my baby dies, it's going to be your fault.
No pressure.
It's so much pressure. It really, I started to have cold blood going through my body. Like I couldn't believe it. A few months before, it was my insurance company. We decided that it was no more welcome to be insured because I was pregnant. I mean, lots of things that happens over the course of things, signing leases. I mean, getting different rates for your business than a man, like a lot of things. And even, being in a situation where your bankers tell you, well, like some guys I know, they have tons of money, there's a lot of money available for business like yours, and none for women. So, which is kind of sad, but
very sad.
We're building the future, and I guess I didn't know all about that, and it just came as frustration over the years. What bothers me today is that it's not moving fast enough, and it's not changing fast enough. I urge not men to change, but women to change.
Absolutely. That is the one thing I'm hearing over each of the telesummits that we do. And it's funny because your view on the gender equality piece is quite contrary to some of the other thought leaders that I've featured on the interview. So it seems to be very much industry specific right now. whether it has a huge impact or whether it has a minimal impact. And clearly in the fashion industry, that's a pretty huge impact. And as you say, over the course of 30 years, that has changed, not fast enough. I think most women would agree. And if that change is going to happen any faster going forward, it is up to our gender to make the difference.
Absolutely. I mean, it's up to women to praise women in the world of fashion. We haven't had enough of that, unfortunately. They always seem to be like less interesting, creative, but it's not true. They just see the fashion in a different way. And I guess, you know, it's the consumer at the end who chooses to validate all these, you know, stereotypes, I must say.
Absolutely. And that is the power of influence that consumers do have, right?
They do. Very, very rarely will you hear, you know, woman designer be praised by the press, be praised by for their, you know, whatever their creative side, or it's
innovation.
Always a question of a position. They do well because of this. They think of, it's always practical, and I'm like really fed up with the practical side. I do practical clothes, but on top of that, I design like novelty.
Beautiful.
I do things that are like completely creative, like
innovative.
The process are, but they are not, because they're not over the top. Like when you look at the clothes, there are more intricate things. There are more subtle. Maybe they're seen differently. They're seen like practical, you know.
You bring up a very valid point. Often women are building their careers, building their empires, along with giving birth, having babies, growing families, pursuing other passions.
Yes.
And it takes a specific mindset to say, I'm not going to listen to those naysayers. I'm going to push back when men or women give me grief about doing what I know intrinsically is best for my business. And that's where we get into mindset, right? That's where we get into what we say to ourselves to block out the noise of what other people are saying to us. Stephen Covey is the one I always quote. He talks a lot about sharpening the saw. And so the idea that we are fit physically, that we are fit mentally and emotionally, and that we're fit spiritually, so that we're strong enough to give pushback to situations like that when we are either physically vulnerable or our business is vulnerable. So I guess my question is, with 30 years in the industry, you've had to push back at a lot. What are the healthy habits that you have that keep your head and your sanity and your physical fitness well? What healthy habits do you have?
Since I was young, I always, you know, look at how privileged I was in living in Montreal, in a society where you know, it's okay to be different. We are different. We speak a different language. There's a lot of freedom here in Quebec in terms of as a human being. You don't have to belong to any group. You can be autonomous, and you can be a disruptor, and you can be all that without having a big wall in front of you whenever you want to do something. There's always a way to do things your own way. So this flexibility and this openness give me, I guess, the dream to think that everything was possible, and that it was not dangerous, and it was not, I would not fear anything doing so. And I think that keeps me going. Like, I'm never scared of going somewhere. Like, I read a lot, I travel, and I see that it's not the case everywhere. A lot of places you have a lot to lose if you want to do things differently. In Quebec, we're extremely privileged to have all this, you know, beautiful surrounding, the nature, the ease of this lifestyle that is so accessible. People are always screaming at how things are going bad, but I mean, like, let's face it, we live in one of the best cities in the world because we do have access to a lot of things, and a lot of things come free. They're not perfect, yeah, no, they come free, so they comes with a lineup, it comes with many other things, but we at least have access to it. We have access to education, and I think it is very important for anybody to keep learning. So I read a lot. I read a lot about my industry, but I read a lot also about other industries, and I collect art, and I think that's basically what keeps me really sane. It's because I think when you live through art pieces and paintings and sculpture, you cannot be depressed. It's such a uplifting energy that you get from looking at, I mean, other people's emotion and creative spirit. And
so surrounding yourself with beautiful things and taking the time to appreciate them, be grateful.
Yeah, I surround myself with beauty all the time. It's very important for me to be around beautiful things. But beautiful things doesn't mean just to be beautiful. It could be disrupting. It could be, but they are beautiful because they exist as a perspective of life. And I always try to see things on a positive way. Like, what do I have to learn from it? Like, why do I have to go through this? So what do I don't understand? And so it keeps me very positive. When I wake up in the morning, I always feel like, okay, it's another day to come here, but like, wow, I can do it. I'm like healthy and I'm privileged to do that. Some people cannot even, make any choices in their day. I can make all the choices I want. And I think the freedom is really the main aspect of my life. When I feel free, I feel that I can do anything.
The freedom of choice, absolutely. Yeah. You brought up a very valid point, and that is we have access to so much here. We are truly blessed in so many ways. And it's interesting because I've lived in Ontario and I've lived it here for large periods of time. I'm Montrealaise originally, and one of the things that I notice is we do have that ose kind of mentality, that take action and take flight. You mentioned something very valid, and that is the importance of surrounding us with beauty or something that makes us go ah. And so much so you've turned that into a passion. Can you tell us about Mu?
Yes, of course. Also, a good way to feel good is to give. I think whenever you give away time or money, or you like to think about other people, you're less concentrated on your own little pain, and you become a better person. So really, since I always felt privileged, since my very youth, even if I was unhappy as a teenager, I was like disrupted and all that, I felt very privileged that, I guess my mom kept telling me, how privileged I was, and my father too, like, you are privileged when you are born in Quebec, for sure. It's one of the great places to live again. But to give away time and to invest yourself in other causes, because not everybody has it easy. Art is a difficult passion too. It's hard to make a living out of art or even design, as a matter of fact. So I spend time, creating events or getting involved into a certain kind of philanthropy. Unfortunately, I have not been born as a philanthropist, because I don't have that kind of money, but we always try to give more than we receive. I like the balance to be, if you feel that you receive a lot, you have to give even more. There's no such thing as deserving anything. I think you have to work for things, and I feel that whenever I invest time in you, which is a Montreal mural organization that contribute to make Montreal an open sky museum, and to have more people benefit from the good vibes of art in the life. And it's it's going to be, I think, a huge issue in the future. Our city will have to carry places where we can actually get inspired and get just not it's not all about function. It has to be about creating spaces that make you feel a certain way. And art is certainly the key word in that, in your urban development, to make you feel less castrated and less like in a box. It's very important to have beautiful things surrounding you.
And provoke thought, right? Each of those murals. So for those not familiar with this, the URL is mumtl.org. Marie sits on the board of MU, and the primary mandate is to create spaces that are filled with art murals. And that takes up, when Marie and I were speaking ahead, a good chunk of that budget is just maintaining what already exists, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, we whatever we get as money is usually to pay the artists, also to make sure that they can get paid for their actions. I mean, sometimes people think art is like something very that doesn't need to be paid for. It's like something that you can create, and
artists have bills too.
But everybody has to earn a living, and artists do too, and they contribute so much to our lifestyle and to our you know, how can I say, mindset. And for me, it's been critical to live around art all my life. I mean, it's changed me as a human being. It's made me a better human, because I was not stuck in just, you know, material world. I was brought into a world where actually people have thoughts and have emotions and wanted to change the world. And somehow an artist always is in need of a lot of love and wants to change the world for better. There's no artist who has a mindset to destroy the world. So that as a start is very inspiring. And so I keep close to the art world and artists. I opened a store in Miami in the art district because of that. Because whenever I go there, like, I'm filled with like some kind of happiness, some kind of, you know, I want to meet with them. I want to share times with them. I want to see how their brain function when they eat, to have a brain that functions that way. Because a creative mind is always someone who sees the future.
Well, you know what I love is the fact that listeners are feeling the exact same thing about you. They want to know what drives a mind like yours. And thank you for sharing all of that. I think one of the things that I admire about you is that although you've got tons of balls in the air, lots of things happening that you're juggling, one of your primary drivers is giving back. And you do that in a lot of ways. You've done that with MU in a very industry specific way, but you also do sous zéro, and sous zéro is very much what we call a coup de cœur, something that touches your heart and others' hearts. So do you want to speak briefly about sous zéro and the good
that you founded sous zéro more than 10 years ago, I guess almost 15 years ago, out of just noticing when I moved my studio to a certain part of Montreal 15 years ago, that a poor part of the Montreal, that a lot of kids would go out in the winter without the proper attire. And I said, wow, my God, it's like -15. And like, I'm looking at those kids and they're not. So I quickly ran through some numbers and did a little bit of research. And I saw that, you know, there was nothing to help get dressed better. Yeah, I'm in the garment industry, you know, I'm in the clothing industry, and I was like, what is happening in Montreal in terms of the clothing industry? How can we help? And I wanted to help women, but at the same time, I could not, you know, give them like Marie Saint Pierre clothes, or I could not help them directly. And I thought, you know, what's most important for a woman? And I did some.
Their children, yeah.
If their children are happy children, happy mom.
Absolutely.
And I realized that, you know, helping their kids, and they were the poorest code of the Montreal society is women. How do you say? Monoparental.
Yeah, single moms.
Single moms.
Yeah.
So that's how we started with the Fonds sous zéro. I mean, since then we have dressed thousands and thousands of kids for the winter condition in brand new clothes, to also give them the happiness to wear something beautiful and new, and to give them the pride that comes with, you know, being looked at and like being the envy of another person. So we kind of wanted kids to go play outside and to have the proper attire to do so and to enjoy their childhood.
And to feel good about themselves at the same time.
It was a feel-good thing. I've also been invested over the years into the Conseil des créateurs de mode du Québec, where I try to help younger designers to achieve their goal and to maybe conquer some of the difficulties of this industry. And so I've you know, imagined a pop-up store that's called Cabinet Éphémère that is running in Rockland Center right now, where they can showcase their creative, their product. Because one of the hardest thing is to get to the customer in a high-end and a prestigious environment. Most brands cannot access that because of many reasons that is too long to name. But so for an upcoming designer, the hardest thing is to reach its audience. So I created the Cabinet Éphémère, which I had the pleasure to be the president of the Conseil des créateurs for many years, and to really think about this process. We are working on a hub right now, a co-working space where we can, you know, people can share different services in order to help them achieve, so they don't have to wait for so long for something to happen.
So you're very much getting under their development and their self-esteem to be able to grow the industry as well.
Absolutely.
Kudos to you. Amazing.
It's difficult because everybody thinks that the pie is small, and whenever you have a big part of the pie, there's no leftover for the others, but it's not true.
No.
It's all about, I think it's all about collaboration right now. We are in a world where we're going to need to collaborate. We're going to need to, you know, ask and give in order to pursue. And I think that's one of the key things that when I installed my store in Miami, attracted some kind of clients that were, there's a lot of philanthropy in the US. It's a big part of having money and buying luxury product. There's a lot of philanthropy going on. It's part of their mission to be philanthropists and to get involved in causes. We know in Quebec, it's not yet as a cultural thing, but maybe
it's growing though. It's growing a lot, and from people that are nurturing that as you are, that's going to have an impact, right? One of the correlations that we see of top healthy leaders who make an impact is that whole element of giving. Yes. And more recently collaborating. So I have a question. I love that philosophy, but when we're giving and we're collaborating and we're creating and we're doing all that, there is a limit of 168 hours in the week. Is there a price to pay for doing all of that, for having it all?
I am, again, very lucky. I inherit from, I guess, from my father, the ability to do a lot in a reduced time. My father was a radiologist, and he was the fastest radiologist of the whole province of Quebec. So he could read many how do you call it? X-rays. Yeah. More than a lot of other people, and they were like, so it's fascinating to be athletic enough to do a lot of things without sacrificing, you know, other things. But it's not about a daily balance either, you know, like you're not like, okay, I'm going to do this from this. You don't want to be stuck in a prison where, you know, every minute of your day is counted. For me, it's about waves. Like when it's time to do this, it's time to do this. And when it's time to take care of the family and it's time to take off, I have the ability to try. Well, I see when I need balance. It's like something is calling me. Now it's time to be a mom. It's time to take some time off and take care of your kids. I have this, it's inside me. So I'm not looking at the balance on an everyday basis. I'm trying to look at a balance on not even a yearly. I mean, I can work for 2 years. Like the last 2 years, all I've done is work. But at the same time, I've dedicated a lot of time to my son because I went out every night for dinner. Every night, every weekend I was there because he's in a teenager a year, and I wanted to be with him to make sure that he knew I was there. So I made sure that during those years, like the last 2 years where I was working really hard, that I would work from home, like from a certain hour at night, and be there for him, whether he wanted to talk or not. You know, you know how it's.
Can't always control that part.
No, but I felt that I had to be there, so I said no to all of the, you know, cultural events and all that I had to attend. And I just said, no, this is time. Like I have 2 years to concentrate on this boy, where you know he needs his mom to be home when he comes home. My husband travels, and I travel too. So so it's feeling like leaving your intuition, your strong intelligence, because I think the intuition is a very strong intelligence to lead you and make sure that you take the right decision, and not trying to be in a, you know, in such an organized world where I see a lot of women who organize themselves. So it's like army. I don't really like that lifestyle. I don't want to feel that I'm, you know, my life is pretty rigorous, but it's not like army type. If I don't want to go to work one morning, I'll just call off my meetings and I won't go.
Well, it sounds to me like the intuition piece or intelligence, as I hear you, because I think we tend to downplay the importance of intuition, and it's hugely impactful. It sounds to me that when you've let that guide you, the decisions that you make don't feel like sacrifices, they feel like smart choices to feed what your ultimate goal is.
Yeah, you're in a good zone with yourself because you follow your instinct and you follow your emotions, and you follow, I mean, like I call it your superior intelligence. If you know what, you know, something is telling you, well, it's time to invest that. It's time to invest in your work right now. It's time to invest in a person in your business. It's time to invest in. You just know where to go. You don't wait for someone to tell you where to go. You just know where to go because your instinct is telling you where to go.
All right, let's shift gears a tiny bit and move into that second piece of the pie, which is speaking to top leaders. Speaking to top leaders, men and women both have 3 primary mandates. They're looking like every leader or they're asked to drive like every leader, improve performance, increased productivity, improved retention. How do women do it differently than men, Marie?
I think we have different manners. We take the human into the center of these decisions, like we were just talking, and I think it's difficult because people have not been raised to be the center of decision. They have been raised to follow up on decision. So there's a shift, I guess, right now in terms of how we must do things, and it's difficult to achieve because it's an educational process. It's like, how do you go from me telling you what to do, from you knowing what to do, and when you are in I guess man, they know how to tell you how to do things, and they probably even, it's part of who they are, it's part of their DNA. Women, we try to organize things in a different way. We're more, I guess we have a woman way to do things, which is maybe less, how do you say, directive. It's more about inclusive and more like a sharing thing. But it's hard for the workforce to understand how that works. So women in business, if they want to be men, I think they're doing the wrong thing for me. I'd rather stay who I am and go slower, but to achieve it in a way where we actually are going to change the world and how it's going to be done. And I think to get people to understand how it's important for them to be at the center of their choices and be at the center of what they want things to happen, and believe that they can make those changes and they can take those decisions, and not being told, do this, do that, go there, go here. Just that they
being
can
far more autonomous.
understand it.
Being
I
far more
cannot hear you.
autonomous, I hear what you're saying.
Yes. Why can I not hear you right now?
I don't
Can
know.
you?
Can you hear me now?
A little bit, very
faintly. Is that better?
Yeah, a little bit better. Yes.
Okay.
It happened.
I'm not sure what changed. I'll speak a little bit louder. I have kids. I can project very well.
I hear you well now.
One of the things, if I hear what you're saying, it's that shift into women being far more autonomous, taking less direction and plugging into the self-direction. And also, what you mentioned last was one of the keys of business going forward is going to be that collaboration piece. And if I hear what you're saying, women do that very well because they tend to be more inclusive, right?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Pardon?
No, I was saying yes. It's a process because nobody has learned to work that way. So it's a different way to approach the workspace and environment. And even in decisions like, you know, today where every business is asking itself, how can I get everybody, like men and women, and how we can do things in a different way. I was talking with someone the other day and they were saying, well, they don't have any more offices in their workspace. And, you know, so people are actually moving from one project to another. And I said, oh, wow, okay, that's interesting, you know, but how do they feel? Like they cannot put the picture of their kid like on their office? Like I'd feel weird a bit. Like I feel I need to see my kids, and I guess, you know, being a woman is, and I need my privacy. I have my lipstick in the drawer, and I have certain things I like to be handled, you know.
At our fingertips, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And he said, well, yeah, it's creating problem. And I said, well, without knowing it, I'm revising the way we work, because instead of depriving people of their office, I make their office move around the space. And I always have done that. I've always moved people around and created, like, okay, when I see that things are like they're not working as easily, or there's like something, I move the offices around, I move people around, I create different teams. So they still have a desk, but it's a nomad desk. So they have to be prepared to pack their things and move on to like 15 feet away or 100 feet away or completely in a different department.
And certainly for creativity, that sparks them to think differently too, right? So that kind of...
When you know that people are like really resistant to change, it gives them the ability to accept change. So
well, sure, because you've given them enough comfort that they feel safe in their space, even if their space moves. Yes,
yes. And in an environment where other spaces don't even exist anymore, I'm still giving you a space, but you have to move along. It's not like, oh, this is where you're going to build your house. This is like, I'm giving you tools to be able to move around. Well, everybody would love that. Like,
absolutely. You know. It nurtures flexibility and creativity. That's good things in a corporate culture.
Yeah, and seeing things differently, putting another pair of glasses and seeing things differently.
All right, as we tie everything up, one of the things I love to leave people with is a wow, something that they can do within 1 week that makes a huge impact. So one quick tip, 10 seconds. What can cultures do, corporations do differently to make a culture better?
Give more.
Good.
Give more, really.
Wonderful. And top leaders, Marie, people that are already in those senior positions, what can they do that has an impact?
I think as corporation or top leader, they need to bring artists more on their board, on their decision process, people who think outside the box, people who, we're saying there's not enough women on boards, but there's not enough artists on boards either. Like, let's bring all of them together and let's try to solve things in a different way with like a completely different vision of things.
Beautiful. I love that. And last thing to leave everybody with, women who are aspiring, who are high potentials, who have it all together and are ready to move to the next level. What's one thing that they can do to be ready for those top positions?
To always feel that they deserve it. It's
Nice.
not anybody.
Marie, I can't thank you enough. You've touched my heart very deeply. I love who you are and what you do, and I thank you so much for being generous to share with the She-Suite listeners today. Thank you very, very much. Listeners, tune in again. Join the shesuite.ca page to find out who our upcoming thought leaders are. shesuite.ca, where top women in Canada are changing the game. Marie, thank you.
Thank you.